Hey guys, thanks for joining me for another Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia video, and today I'm going to do a quick little kind of Crevasse overview and just guide to this specific Crevasse and my team builds and what I got for a score and kind of how I got through it, right? So, for those of you that are new to Crevasse, basically the way that this works is you go into fights, and for this specific one, for the hard one, it is, like 3 Shinryus and 3 Lufenia pluses, or 2 Lufenia pluses, something like that. We'll look at it. I've got my whole deal here, but I'll tell you this. None of the fights are really gimmies. Like, these are all fairly challenging. This has been, by far, the most challenging overall Crevasse I've done. And so the way that it works is you go in and you set these codes. So you can see I've got, like, this big list of codes here. Basically, you're setting yourself up with color restrictions and weapon restrictions. And, by doing heavier restrictions, you can get more points. The general tip here is you want to try to make sure that everybody's weapon and color combo fits into a code somehow to maximize your points. The other thing I recommend doing in Crevasse, I've always recommended this, but you want to work backwards. So you always start with the hardest quests first and work your way back. So that way you're getting the harder quests done with a more full roster, because these are also lockout. So you're not only setting yourself up with codes to restrict, but then also as you use characters, you cannot use them again. So that's why I always recommend going for the harder fights first, work your way backwards, get as many points as you can. That way, you can always go back in and re-unlock fights and retry them with different team comps to get more points, okay? What I'm going to show you guys first, and I think it's going to be very difficult to do this, but there are people that want to go for like the max score, and in order to do that, you have to use basically a 3 times code in the weapon and the color category in the hardest fights, which is very, very difficult. I'm going to show basically, I guess, the most usable team comps that would fit into that situation, and you can see if you want to challenge yourself and try to do them. I think it's okay too to sometimes maybe use your triples on some of the easier ones. You don't get as many points, but that's fine. That being said, don't feel like you have to do double triples on the Shinryus, because it's really hard. Doing like a ×2 of a color and maybe a ×2 of a weapon and then a ×1 color ×1 weapon, that can be enough. And you'll see when you look at mine, the only time I did like the triple setup was like maybe on an easier one. I don't know if I even did one full triple setup. We'll see. So one thing is with the codes though, and I've talked about this in other videos, I'm not a fan that they restrict some things where like they don't have every weapon represented. I wish they had a whip code. I wish they had a bow code. They should have a code at least a ×1. And so the way that this works is for the weapons and the crystal colors, there will be ×1 codes, ×2 codes, and ×3 codes. So what that means is if I'm running 3 blue characters, I could use the blue ×3 crystal, for example, right? Somebody in the comments asked me, like, can we stack these? Like, so someone was wondering, could I stack a ×2 blue with a ×3 blue with a ×1 blue? No, you can't do that. Once you've activated a blue crystal code, you can't activate any other of the same code, even if it's a different number, right? So basically the idea is that you're supposed to use, like, if you have 3 blues, you use your ×3 blue. That's what you'd use it on. Now, the other thing is the codes also get locked out. So if you use a code, you cannot use that on other fights. So that's another restriction, right? So when we're looking at this, so let's just start off quick and look at like what the max score type of codes are going to be. Basically, the triple code colors for this Crevasse are going to be blue, yellow, and white. So those are the only colors you could get triple color of. And for weapons, it's going to be dagger, sword, and heavy sword. So those are the 3. So that being said, I did set up, I'm just going to go to my party tab here. I did set up some team comps that I thought were some of the more reliable options, right? So this here would be an example of a triple dagger, triple white team. Now you can see the Thancred and Lion are definitely much weaker characters. The thing here is you've got Penelo. Penelo is strong enough to carry this team. It is kind of crazy, and I've done some runs with this team, and Penelo can literally just carry it. So this is a viable team you could try if you want to do that. The one thing I'm going to recommend, though, is if you're going to use Penelo, I think you need to use her on part 6, like the hardest one. That fight was really hard. I did put that up on my channel. I talked about my frustrations with that fight already, but we'll kind of review that as we go through. But that could be an option if you want to do a triple white, triple dagger team. I think triple blue dagger is actually a pretty viable team. And I think I did actually use this team. And we'll look at my spread, like we'll go through all my codes and stuff in a minute. But this is the team I believe I ran for one of my Shinryus. It was either for Shinryu or Lufenia Plus. I don't remember which one. But I did Ferris, Edge, and Zidane. And then I do think that Locke you could also use in Zidane's place. I think you could use Locke or Zidane there. But I think the combination of Edge and Ferris is a really good start to a team. You want to make sure you use this team in a fight where dodging is viable. Some of the fights really block dodging a lot. But if you do a fight where dodging is viable, Ferris's FR can carry enough damage for these fights. So I think Blue Dagger is actually like a legitimate team you can run. Once again, you have to have these characters built, though. That's the other restriction, right? Keep in mind, Crevasse, especially the hard one, this is really meant for veteran players. Like, you, as a new player, you can come in and try to get some codes, get some points, right? But like, you're probably not going to get the full score if you're a new player, right? Then we have Heavy Sword. I feel like Blue Heavy Sword was maybe the most viable for doing 2 triples, right? So triple Blue, triple Heavy Sword. This is because you've got Jack Garland to carry the damage. Pain, I think, is very good as a, you could use her in a debuff role, or you could use her in a support role, or you could use her in both, depending where you put her in the party. And then Ash I put on here because, you know, this Crevasse should still be active, I believe, when Ash drops. So you could just plug the new Ash FR into this team and probably do pretty well there, right? Cloud also fits in as a Blue Heavy Sword, and Cloud's also getting a rework, so Cloud definitely could work. So I think Blue Heavy Sword, if you're doing the Heavy Sword route, that's probably the most viable for a triple code on both. And then White. White, there was 2 combos. Now, White Normal Sword, this one is tough. Like this one, you would have to have Yuri FR for this. And once again, most of these teams, I feel like having an FR is almost a must. Not maybe on the Lufenia Pluses, but those Lufenia Pluses, those bosses have a lot of HP. They actually feel like early Shinryu fights. So I really wanted at least an FR for every one of these fights. Otherwise, I feel like they would just go on forever, basically. So I don't have Yuri FR, but if you have Yuri FR, I think this could be viable. Warrior of Light, even though he's a little dated, like his shields will still hold up and save you. And Queen's got a lot of healing and support. So I think this team could be viable on some of the quests that you could try. And then here's another setup here. I actually think Yellow Sword is pretty legit. And I did do a Yellow Sword comp on one of my Lufenia runs. But I think Arden, Desh, and Ramza is pretty good. We also have Bartz, I believe, as an option here, who could be a decent support. But I kind of like this team build right here. Arden actually does very well here. You know, if you build Arden, you have his FR. Here's the thing. I actually got through a quest with Desh FR, which is kind of crazy, right? That's a blast from the past. I haven't used that guy in a long time. But I'll show you what fight I used this team on. Desh was actually so clutch, and he's a character I don't use very much. But boy, he negated out some damage. I believe this team I ran on one of the Lufenia runs, right? So kind of my strat was the Shinryus, I didn't worry about getting double, triple codes. But then on the Lufenia Pluses, I tried to squeeze them in because they are a little bit easier. And I do think I got through with this team. So yeah, I think that's basically, in my opinion, the best setups you can use if you're doing a triple book, triple weapon combo. Let's go back into Crevasse here. And let's go to my quest overview. So here's basically my setup. So overall, I got, 513 points. And for the rewards, I think you need 510 to get like the special token by your name, which you can see right there. So I kind of consider 510 to be the marker that you'd want to go for to say that it's done. There are more rewards, but it's just tickets, and I'm not worried about that. So I'm happy with my 513 that I got. I will definitely take that. So the idea is, I would say on the 3, so we got what? 1, 2, 3 Shinryu, and 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so it's 3 Shinryu, 3 Lufenia Plus. I would say you've got to for sure get over 100 points on each Shinryu to have a shot at this, which I just got it, right? Mine was about as tight as you can get, right? So here's my part 6 run. This video is posted on my channel. This was Luna Freya, Pinello, Ishtola. I talked about the frustration with this fight. These enemies debuff you constantly. They can one-shot you. They wipe your buffs a lot. Pinello just is a unit that carries and makes the fight feel easy. There's people, I think, that have done this fight, and they did Pinello their first try, and they didn't realize how hard the fight is. If you want to try this fight without a Pinello team, you'll see that it's a lot harder. And I know there are non-Pinello runs out there. If you want to post your non-Pinello runs in the comments, I'm curious to see what kind of team comps you got through with. I did have some team comps that I know could get through it. I just kept getting like weirdly randomly one-shot like near the end of the fight, and I just got frustrated, and I just spent way too much time on this fight that I want to go in and get Pinello. So this was a ×1 white, ×2 yellow, ×1 dagger, ×2 staff. And then I used codes, the number 3 code for the force. So the number, it won't let me see them right here. I don't remember exactly what those are, but they are the number 3 codes for the force time, okay? Then the next Shinryu was part 5. Now this one, I don't have a video on my channel. So I initially did this one with Penelo on my team, and I do have a video of that run on my channel. But if you want to follow my actual team build, what I ran here, this team was actually pretty sweet. This team operated so well on part 5. This was Minwu, Celis, and Galuf. And Galuf carries the damage. Now, the thing that made this fight hard, and the reason why I initially ran Penelo on it, I noticed that my characters were almost always hitting 1s. So characters that rely on Brave damage, it's really hard to get through on this fight. You need Brave gain, right? And so there were parts in this fight even where like Minwu's traps were hitting like triple digits because it was so like some of his traps rely on the Brave hits, right? But now like Celis's traps and like Galuf's counters, like there's Brave gain in there, so they're hitting heavy. I would say Galuf was actually my biggest damage dealer in this fight. His counters just came in so heavy, all the traps ticking up the gauge. And here's the thing, I had 2 FRs to rely on here. I think I primarily used Minwu's FR here. The reason why I didn't use Celis FR is Celis FR, part of what makes it good is when she absorbs. But with Galuf on the team, Galuf is going to steal any single target. So Celis wouldn't be absorbing single target hits, only the all hits. So Minwu to me was just a more consistent FR that was constantly triggering. So this fight actually went pretty smooth. Once I found the team, I got it done on my first try. It was a matter of just finding the team. So this was a red ×1, a green ×2, a mage ×1, and a heavy sword ×2. And then I used the number 1 code for the FR gauge. Okay, and then the last Shinryu fight here, part 4. This one I did post on my channel. This one, the video got cut off weird though, so like there's only like the last 3 minutes of the video. But this was Gladio, Jack, and Zach. So obviously Gladio and Jack are like my 2 main staples here, and then Zach was there to kind of fit codes, right? So this one was a triple heavy sword comp, so I did get a ×3 on this one. And then it was ×2 black, ×1 blue. So this netted me 115 points. So this was my strongest point total out of all my Shinryus because I was able to get a triple code in. So if you can get the triple codes in, you get a lot more points, right? So and then this one I used the number 2 FR gauge. Okay, now we get to the Lufenias. Now this part 3, you'll notice is my lowest score, 56 points. And the reason why, this part 3 fight is actually very hard, very difficult. I went with the number 3 orb. So this one, like the orb placement is really important. So that you pick an orb that you can trigger. So I did a little Enna Crow cheese on this one. It's kind of the way I handled it because I didn't like this fight. And I don't remember what the number 3 Lufenia was. I think it was something with Brave gaining or buffing. You just pick something that tailors to what the team can do. And this team can like buff and Brave gain. I think it was something like that. This was a ×1 sword, a ×1 unique, and a ×3 white. So what really helped the score here was the ×3 white. But there was actually a code I couldn't use here, which was Hope. They do not have throwing weapons. So that's another one I would add to the list that I wish they would have just had at least a ×1 for each weapon. So I ran Hope here without getting a code for his weapon, and we were still able to squeak enough points through. So basically I just did Hope ramp cheese here and got through that one. Then part 2. This was my triple sword yellow run that I was telling you about, and this was Arden, Desh, and Ramza. This fight is a triple enemy, so it's like triple bears, and they do so here's the thing, they're mostly physical attack and do a lot of strong. So like the thing with this fight, it's very hard to keep up with the orb here. The orb is you have to break them or delay them, okay? The thing is if you are not constantly doing it, the orb catches up. So Arden and Lightning are really good on this fight because they can break a lot, but I like Arden a little bit better because his break is more on demand with the Warp Strike. Lightning has to use an AA first to set up a break if they don't have one up or get her EX. So Arden I found just a little bit more consistent for breaking. Now the thing with this fight is if the orb pops, and once again I chose the orb, right? And I felt like doing the break orb and delay orb was good here because I've got Ramza who can delay and I've got Arden who's breaking constantly. And all that. Lightning's LD works good because that has delay as well and breaks. So Lightning can work with this also. I just found Arden to be a little bit better here for me personally. And my Arden, here's the thing, isn't fully built. And my Lightning is. And I liked Arden actually a little bit better here. So shout out to Arden. He was showing up. But here's how this works. There's 3 enemies and their orbs do not auto kill you, but they're very heavy physical attacks. But then the other thing is their recast ability is like a thunder attack that is magic damage. So Desh was actually kind of an MVP here because his whole deal is he goes in between like a physical defense wall and a magic defense wall, right? So basically, if you have Desh in physical stance, their orb pops were doing triple digits to me, like no damage. I could just let the orbs pop for days and I was fine. Then all I had to do was when their recast came up, I had to switch Desh to magic stance, and then the magic attacks didn't hurt me. Desh was so good in this fight. I just have to give a shout out to Desh here. It was very fun. This run was really cool, and this is why I like lockout stuff, because Desh has just been collecting dust in my box, and I got to pull him out and be like, yeah, I'm going to use Desh again. And Desh is one of those characters who I actually sold his FR, but I had maxed it, right? So I still had his full maxed FR ability, but I sold it, and so this was Desh only equipped with his EX weapon, and he still was able to get through. It was fine. So that was one of the fights I was pretty happy with. This was a full triple. This was a triple squad, right? So triple yellow, triple sword with the number 2 orb, which once again, the number 2 orb I believe was breaking and delaying. Then fight number 1, I did a triple blue, triple dagger. So I was able to squeak out more points on these Lufenia Plus fights. Now you see they only netted me 66, but every point mattered, and I got enough on my, like I said, if you can average over 100 points per Shinryu, you can get away with using like the bigger codes down here in Lufenia Plus if you've got the roster to do it. This was my triple blue, triple dagger that I talked about. So this was Ferris, Edge, and Zidane. This fight was like super safe, super easy. I never felt threatened. Ferris puts on a lot of debuffs, and I believe this was the debuffing Lufenia orb, so it was super easy to keep up with the orb. The orb never gave me an issue. I think this one was for either debuffing or buffing yourself. It was a super easy orb. Edge made it so I was dodging constantly. Zidane kept us healed up with his BT effect. Ferris was the main FR carrier here, and we got the off-turn damage. It went beautiful. This was just a nice, easy fight. So anyways, guys, there you go. There's all my codes. Those were my team setups. I got 513 points. Let me know what your setups were. How many points were you able to get? Were you able to get more than me? Did you get the cool badge? Thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you all on the next one.